Good evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. We'll start with the headlines. The Ministry of Interior registers the withdrawal of 23 candidates from this final list of Shura Council candidates. Lebanon's cabinet holds an emergency meeting after protests over trash collection spilled over into street violence. And Turkish president appoints the prime minister to form an interim government, and Turkey and the United States conclude technical talks on operations against the Daesh group. Those are the headlines, and now for the news in details. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has received a cable of thanks from His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of Egypt in reply to His Majesty's cable of condolences on the death of his mother. His Majesty the Sultan also received a cable of thanks from His Excellency President Xi Jinping of China in reply to His Majesty's cable of condolences on the victims of the explosions that shook the northern Chinese port city of Tianjin. The Ministry of Interior registered the withdrawal of 23 candidates from the final list of Shura Council candidates as it closed the deadline of the withdrawal of candidacy applications for the Shura Council membership for the 8th term. The ministry pointed out that the total number of candidates reached to 651, adding that the objection period on names mentioned on the preliminary list of candidates ends on Thursday, the 27th of August. The current term witnesses an increase in activities in electoral campaigns in which candidates compete to convey their ideas and visions to the largest share of voters. The latest technologies and means used to discover electronic trade crimes were the center of discussions at the 3rd International Electronic Trade Conference. The event is being organized by Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Governorate of Dhofar. The inauguration ceremony was presided over by His Excellency Isa bin Hamad Al-Azri, Under-Secretary of the Ministry of Justice. The conference sheds light on some international and regional experiences in the field. A number of academic and experts from regional countries and international organizations took part in the event. The conference will continue till 26th of August. Awareness seminars on crime prevention held in the Governorate of Dhofar called upon all the society segments to stick to preventive measures to help authorities concerned on tracking criminals. The seminar was organized by the Director General of Criminal Investigations of Royal Oman Police. Such procedures including putting surveillance cameras at houses. The seminar was presided over by His Excellency Sheikh Salim bin Ufayt al-Shamfari, Chairman of Dhofar Municipality. The aim of the seminar is to reduce the percentage of crimes in the Sultanate in addition to protecting the public. The seminar also aimed at acquainting citizens and residents with the best means of crime prevention. It also aimed at involving civil society in supporting the efforts of the Director General of Investigations in reducing percentage of crimes. More than 2,500 orphans and disabled receive social welfare in the Governorate of South Batna. This was revealed at the Orphans and Disabled Forum. The forum stressed on the necessity of giving support to this segment in order to perform its role in serving the society. It was organized by the Omani Women's Association in the Wilaya of Nakhal. The forum highlighted the role of Islam in serving this segment. It's worth mentioning that various government bodies participated in the forum, which shed light on the role of civil society's establishments in promoting voluntary work and in serving the disabled and orphans. The monetary value of real estate activity in the Governorate of North Batna recorded more than 18 million Omani Riyals during last July. The collected fees amounted to 250,000 Omani Riyals through 4,134 transactions. The Ministry of Housing also said the number of land plots in the detailed plans of the Governorate for various uses reached 113 plots. The revenues of 3- and 5-star hotels reached more than 97 million Omani Riyals until the end of last June. The number of guests at the same period reached 557,000 visitors, according to statistics issued by the National Center for Statistics and Information. The statistics pointed out that the total number of tourists visiting the Sultanate reached 1.1 million. And still to come in our news bulletin. Tourists and residents flock to Hafa Souq and Salala for buying frankincense and other traditional Omani materials. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Lebanon's cabinet held an emergency meeting today in its newly fortified headquarters after protests over trash collection spilled over into street violence and calls for the feuding government to resign. Beirut-based activists from the You Stink campaign held two large rallies over the weekend and a smaller march yesterday over uncollected rubbish, reflecting long simmering anger about government incompetence and political corruption. Protest organizers have called on Lebanese at home and abroad to join them in a large rally on Saturday. Meanwhile, the ministers arrived at the heavily guarded Sirayel Palace and began their meeting. Environment Minister Mohammed El-Mashnouk yesterday named 6 companies that had won waste management tenders in Lebanon's different 6 regions. But the announcement did little to appease the protesters. The trash crisis began last month when the main refuse tip for Beirut was closed, while collection has resumed in some areas. No lasting solution has been found. Meanwhile, 2 people were killed in a Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon in renewed overnight clashes between the mainstream Palestinian factions Fatah and hardline members. The 2 sides exchanged heavy gunfire in Ain al-Hilwa refugee camp in southern Lebanon, which has regularly seen factional disputes spiral into deadly violence. The 2 men killed were from the Fatah, and the violence displaced a large number of the camp's inhabitants. More than 30 people were also wounded. Lebanon's Palestinian camps mainly fall outside the jurisdiction of the Lebanese security services. 3 Saudi soldiers have been killed by artillery fire from Yemen, and another died when his patrol vehicle crashed along the border. A Saudi border post in the kingdom's southern region of Jazan came under shell and rocket fire from Yemeni territory yesterday. In a separate incident, a Saudi soldier operating along the border with Yemen was killed when his vehicle overturned. Riyadh said the rocket fire had killed a general, the highest-ranking officer to die in a cross-border attack since the Saudi-led coalition began airstrike against rebels across Yemen in March. Nearly 60 people, mainly military personnel, have been killed in Saudi Arabia's border region since the air campaign began. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan appointed Prime Minister Ahmed Davutoglu to form an interim government today that will lead the country into a new election. Turkey's president formally called a new election yesterday, a day after the deadline passed for forming a new government, following an inconclusive vote in June. A statement released from the president's office didn't say when the new election would be held, but the president has previously said it was likely to take place on the 1st of November. The Turkish foreign minister said today that Turkey and the United States had concluded technical talks on operations against the Daesh group. Speaking at a news conference, he pointed out that Turkish and U.S. military officials had sealed an agreement on technical details and procedures. Ending months of reluctance, Turkey has agreed to a deeper involvement in the fight against the Daesh group. It has carried out raids against Daesh group targets in Syria and is allowing a key airbase close to the Syrian border to be used in the U.S.-led campaign against the extremists. A series of large explosions at a gas terminal on the edge of the western Afghan city of Herat killed 10 children and an adult living in a camp for people displaced by war. The explosions were felt across Afghanistan's 3rd largest city, and images showed the subsequent fire reaching high into the night sky. It was not immediately clear whether the explosions were an accident or the result of an attack. North and South Korea agreed earlier today to end a military standoff that sparked an exchange of artillery fire and had ratcheted up tension on one of the world's most heavily fortified borders. Korean Defense Ministry spokesman said the military would, however, maintain its full readiness in case of another provocation from the north. North Korea expressed regret that 2 South Korean soldiers were maimed in a recent landmine blast, and Seoul blamed that on the north. South Korea, for its part, agreed to halt the hated loudspeaker messages that outside analysts say could demoralize frontline troops and inspire them to defect. Typhoon Goni made landfall in Japan's southernmost main island of Kyushu, bringing heavy rain and strong winds this morning and forcing thousands to evacuate their homes. Japanese broadcaster TBS showed torrential rain battering the streets of Fukuoka Prefecture and reported that all flights leaving from and arriving from Fukuoka Airport had been cancelled. The typhoon is moving northwards at a maximum speed of 35 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, TBS said nearly 4,000 people in Fukuoka and Saga prefectures took shelter at community centers, while at least 6 people were injured. 2 buildings collapsed during heavy flooding in northeastern Turkey, killing several people. Television pictures showed chaotic scenes as rivers burst their banks and raged down roads, trapping cars and buses. Heavy rains continued yesterday evening, and in Yoldair village, 3 people died, including a mother and a daughter. There was no immediate information on the other victims. Rescue teams were trying to reach people stranded by the floods. Haifa in Salalah in the governorate of Dhofar is famous for its traditional Omani souk. Our reporter Abdullah bin Ahmed al-Rubai, along with lots of tourists, visited the souk of frankincense and souvenirs.
Haifa souk, one of the areas visited by many visitors of Salalah festival. Haifa souk is an essential stop for traditional Omani and Arabian gifts, souvenirs, and a true Salalah experience. This souk is filled with people who are keeping the tradition of old Oman, from traditional clothing and accessories to homeware, and most noticeably in these narrow winding alleys leading in and out of each other is frankincense shops and kiosks. Frankincense, the fragrant sap that has been harvested from Boswellia's sacred trees here in the governorate of Dhofar for over 5,000 years. Frankincense is traditionally burned over a coal for its divine scent, as seen here. While walking through, I came across many families here. It was wonderful speaking to this mother here, who is accompanied by her children and grandchildren. She described to me her happiness of being here in this beautiful place, and in particular this souk. In addition to frankincense, you will see bukhur, which is also burned over a coal for different smell. This is locally mixed with different fragrance like almas, a luscious combination of oud and flora. Many people seen here are present to buy this type of bukhur.
From Kuwait, we come here since 6 days ago. I buy Liban and bukhur. I like this area. The weather is good. The people are very kindly, very nice with us.
Salalah is very beautiful places, and we now in this souk I buy for the gifts.
While going through alleys, one would come across many shops selling Omani coffee. This is highly in demand by citizens. This cap serves as distinguished feature in the Omani traditional costume. For Salalah Festival 2015, I'm Abdullah bin Ahmed al-Rubai, Sultanate of Oman Television, Salalah, Governorate of Dhofar.
And now for the general weather forecast. Cloudy skies will prevail over the coastal areas in the nearby mountains of the governorate of Dhofar with chances of intermittent drizzle. The rest of the Sultanate will have clear skies with chances of cloud accumulation and scattered rainfall over the Hajar Mountains and the nearby areas. Winds will be southwesterly active along the coast of the Arabian Sea, while it will be south to southeasterly light to moderate in the rest of the Sultanate. Seas along the coast of the Arabian Sea will be rough with a maximum wave height of 4 meters, and for the rest of the coast it will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1 meter. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The Ministry of Interior registers the withdrawal of 23 candidates from the final list of Shura Council candidates. Lebanon's cabinet holds an emergency meeting after protests over trash collection spilled over into street violence. And Turkish president appoints the prime minister to form an interim government, and Turkey and the United States conclude technical talks on operations against the Daesh group. With that, we come to an end to tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, good night.